And at 3x4, we simply say we want to test, we don't guess. But the issue that we kept coming to is still this idea of personalization. I feel like we're looking at the root cause. And he said, I don't think you are. I think you're missing something big. I think you need to start with a genes first approach. It caused me to feel like an imposter sometimes. It was so apparent to me that the sporting world was missing probably one of the easiest assessments we could do. We're going to start with this quote real quick. High performance isn't just optimization. It's a relentless pursuit of excellence where accuracy and precision meet unyielding hard work and effort. It's about recognizing the sweat-soaked hours, the early mornings, and the late nights that athletes pour into their craft, giving them hope that every rep counts towards something greater. It's making them feel seen, not as statistics, but as warriors in their own epic journeys, helping them believe the process is worth it, because precision and execution turns potential into power. High performance isn't only about outputs. It's about the athlete's journey, where transparency illuminates the effort, clarity cuts through confusion, process triumphs over shortcuts, and belief is backed by unshakable confidence. And it's about timing your peaks, your recoveries, your breakthroughs, with accuracy and precision that separates good from great. I want to show athletes what's possible. I want to meet them where they are. I want to fuel them with the fire and the confidence and the precision that they deserve to get on the field. Those are just some thoughts that I had as I think about high performance. My name's Daniel Guzman, and this is episode 1 of the House of Genes podcast. Now, I've been thinking about this podcast for a while. I want to have something that is meaningful for athletes, coaches, GMs, fans, friends, families, for people that care about sports, who care about fitness, where they put in the effort and the grind on a daily basis. Real quick to start off, the House of Genes, what does that mean? I work for 3x4 Genetics. We do genetic testing on the health side, on the sports side, but mostly we really care about making an impact with precision and accuracy. And at 3x4, we simply say we want to test, we don't guess. Now, our head of creative and head of marketing, Mike Smith, he comes up with the best names all the time. And this was one that just stuck a couple weeks ago. And the reason why I love this idea of the House of Genes is because sports is not the only thing we do. We've got great people in our company like Annalie and Heretta and Mariette, Candace, our CEO, Tony. And we're all working together in this house to bring genetics to the world and make a big impact. But for the purpose of what I'm talking about, it's going to be focused on training, on recovery, on injury profiling, reducing injury risk, on nutrition, all the things that athletes are considering as a part of their high performance program. So that's what we're going to jump into. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to start with my history for those of you who don't know me. I started out as a strength conditioning coach. When I graduated from Westmont College, I had a great mentor that taught me that strength and conditioning was not just about looking good. That can be part of it. Better body composition, improving muscle mass, all those things can be important. But you could actually make someone faster, more mobile. You could get them out of pain. And that's what got me excited. From Westmont College, I worked for Athletes Performance. From Athletes Performance, jumped into the LA Galaxy. And if you're not familiar with that, the Los Angeles Galaxy is a premier soccer club in the first division in the United States in Major League Soccer. I learned a lot at the LA Galaxy, which we'll talk about in different episodes. But I really learned the beginnings of what high performance was. There was a lot of incredible athletes there. There was a lot of great practitioners. Shout out Kurt Andrews, one of the greatest athletic trainers that I know. From there, I went to the U.S. men's national team, where I took that experience in high performance and tried to work with the team on a global stage, when you're basically a traveling circus all across the world, all in an effort to win games, get points, and essentially gets the World Cup. From there, I went to LAFC, or Los Angeles Football Club, the black and gold. And that was a startup. It was the first time I joined a team that had no history. It was incredible. And in 2018, I was able to join a staff of incredible coaches, incredible practitioners to redefine what high performance was. And we did a lot of great things there. And again, in other episodes, we'll talk about some of the stories there. But that was the start of my career in strength and conditioning. To bring in sports science, to bring in nutrition, to bring in early and late stage rehab. All of these things were helping me to learn and to shape what high performance could be. Now, here's the thing. Out of all the trophies, out of all the awards, out of all the records that the team had broke together, I still found myself in a place where there were the same injuries that were still happening. There were the same issues that would come up. And to some extent, that was normal. Hamstring injuries are still the number one muscle injury in the world, according to the UEFA study. And so every single year, you're going to deal with things like that. You want to keep it pretty low, but that's going to come up. But there's still some questions around this idea of personalization or individualized programming. And I think we do a lot of these different things in high performance to get us to that, right? I've got a Garmin watch to track my running loads now as a runner. I've got an Oura ring to track my sleep. I might use a continuous glucose monitor to measure my glucose response to different foods I'm eating. I might do a food journal. I might have force plates to jump and see how much force I'm producing in the ground to give me a bunch of different readings. We've got timing gates for speed. We've got GPS to look at external load. We've got heart rate monitors. We have all of these things, and we use this technology to help us understand what is going on with the athlete in real time. Who is the athlete? And all that stuff can be really important when it's used in the right way. But the issue that we kept coming to, and the issue that I would find anywhere across any team in the world, is still this idea of personalization. So what happened next? We started looking at blood labs, and we started saying, okay, athletes need to do blood labs a whole lot more often. What does their vitamin levels look like? What does their inflammation levels look like? We want to test these different biomarkers so we can get an idea of where they're at in real time and how our program is working. And yet we'd still have the same issues and the same problems. And again, this is high performance sport. So we are pushing athletes to the limit. We are fighting this fitness fatigue curve to try and improve performance on a weekly basis, at least in soccer, for an end result of performing well in a match or keeping the team healthy, whatever it might be. And yet we still have these same issues. Well, how come when I travel from here to here, I don't recover very well? But on this week, I went across the United States and I had the best sleep of my life. Why are all these things always changing? And for me, it caused me to feel like an imposter sometimes, because these athletes that we're working on, they put a lot of trust and faith into the coaches and to the medical staff and the performance staff. It is our jobs to guide them to what we think is the best healthcare, the best performance plan, so they can stay healthy and perform well and do their job. That is their livelihood. And every night I'd go to sleep and I'd constantly be thinking, how can we improve? What are we missing? What are we not seeing? When an athlete asks me a question, how am I going to know what the right answer is? And there's a lot of times where we don't know, and that's okay. We're honest. And we do the research and we say, here's our best plan. Here's our thesis. Fast forward to 2022. I leave LAFC, had a great time, was moving on because I wanted more time with my family. I wanted more time for growth to ask these questions. And I met Tony Hsu, CEO of 3x4 Genetics. And he planted this seed in my brain. And he basically said, what if you started to look at performance through a root cause approach instead of a symptomatic one? And I thought, well, I already do that. I do force plate jumps. I do speed tests. We do wellness questionnaires. We look at sleep, all that kind of stuff. I feel like we're looking at the root cause. And he said, I don't think you are. I think you're missing something big. I think you need to start with a genes first approach. You have to look at the genetics. Now, I'd never heard of this at all. We had never done genetic testing. It had never even been a consideration in any medical staff meeting I was in any performance meeting. We never once thought to look at genetics. And so over the next 4 to 6 months, I said, okay, Tony, if you'll teach me, if your team will teach me, I'm interested to learn more. And paper after case study, talking to the team, it was so apparent to me that the sporting world was missing probably one of the easiest assessments we could do to start with this genes first approach. Again, this idea of we test, we don't guess. And this little 2-minute cheek swab that was so easy to do would now give me a blueprint, a baseline, would give me a profile of who the person is. It was the first time that I felt like I had finally gotten the answers to each new athlete I had, and to look at a team and to say, I know each of them as individuals now. I know where their starting point is. I was explaining this to my daughter the other day when she asked me, why do we do genetic tests? Now, my kids are little, and so if I can explain something to an 8-year-old, then I can probably explain it to people with PhDs or these big degrees. And so I had to think, what is a way that she's going to understand? And lately, we've been playing a lot of board games. And I said, Ivy, when you don't do a genetic test, it's like you show up for the family event, we're going to play a board game, but we don't even know what game we're playing. We don't know the pieces that we're using. We're just showing up to play the game. And we decide, you know what? We've done these blood tests, or we've done this force plate, or we've done a speed test. So you're going to get the pieces for Monopoly right now. Or you're going to get the pieces for Chutes and Ladders. And now we're all playing with different pieces. But we still don't know the map. We don't know what we're playing on. And she sat there and she thought about it. And she said, well, wouldn't you want people to know what game they're playing? And I said, yeah, I would think so. You would want to know. And by doing a genetic test, we realized that, Ivy, you're actually playing Monopoly. And your brother Theo is playing Chutes and Ladders. And Daddy's playing chess, or whatever it might be. And it started to click for her, where she was able to explain it to my parents later in that week. And so I think that's one way to understand it. We can use a bunch of different images and metaphors and stuff like that. But essentially, we want to know, what game are you playing? Who are you? What are the rules of your game? And then when we use blood test or force plate test, if we use timing gates, then we know what's happening along that pathway in the game. Whether we want to get to the end of Candyland or we're trying to get back to go for Monopoly, we want to know, what are the steps to get there. Now, if this analogy didn't work for you, that's okay. We can find other ways to do it too. But essentially, this clicked for me. And from that point on, I decided I will never train an athlete or give any recommendations unless they've done a genetic test. Otherwise, I'm just guessing. I would tell the athlete, hey, you want me to recommend a training stimulus for you, or you want me to recommend the best recovery? I might as well close my eyes and just throw a dart at the wall and say, yeah, that's the one you're going to do. And it might work. It might help reduce inflammation. A cold plunge might be the right thing. Eating more vegetables could be the right thing. There's some obvious ones, like taking a certain amount of creatine, or maybe taking a vitamin D or a multivitamin. I think that stuff is great, but most athletes do a lot of the basics already. What they really want to know is they want to know, what is that one golden nugget that I'm just completely missing, right? I can perform on the field, but there's a whole nother level I can get to. And I want to max that out. That's the one that I'm really looking for. That's the one piece of information I want to have. And I think that's incredibly valuable. Now, throughout these podcast series, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the experiences I had in high performance sport before I used genetic testing. And now some of the experiences we have now when we work with teams like Cesena, or players across the MLS, or even players outside of soccer in the NBA, the NFL, in the Olympics, whatever it might be. But we want to talk about these ideas so that people get more aware, so that they are understanding what is fully available to them. Because what I can tell you is that a genetic test is one of the few things I've seen that actually changes behavior. I've told athletes for years and years to stretch more, or to take a certain supplement, or maybe they didn't eat more vegetables, a specific type of vegetable, because the dietitians thought that's what they needed to take. But it's different when you get a test, you get a result that is only about you. There's no one else in the world with your genetics. And when you get that, I've actually seen behavioral change. And that's the experience that I want every athlete to have. And I know in the next few years, this will be the most mainstream thing. In fact, it's going to be much more common sense, where athletes will say to their coaches and their practitioners, why don't I just take a genetic test? Or here's my genetic results I'd like to share with you. I'm trusting you as the head of performance, or the head of sports science, or the head of dietetics. I'm trusting you to make the right decisions. But I want to start with the root cause. I don't want to start with the symptoms. So that's what this whole journey is going to be about. This is episode 1, a brief intro into the House of Genes. We're going to talk more in the next one about actual applications and interventions. Thanks for checking in.